Welcome to TGS, Transform, Grow, Succeed. This podcast is about your work as caring professional and the ideas we can share to elevate and expand what we offer to those that we serve. My name is Dr. Tim Gravoy, Executive Director of TGS Educational Consulting. I'm excited to introduce David Verdugo to the show. David Verdugo became the eighth superintendent of Santa Cruz Valley Unified School District number 35 in May 2014. He has more than 30 years of experience in the field of education as a teacher, coach, principal, and superintendent. And under his leadership, the district and its schools have risen to national and state recognition. Superintendent Verdugo has also received individual recognition as an educational leader, being named the 2012 Arizona School Administrators Middle Level State Principal of the Year and the 2019 Arizona School Administrators Midsize All Arizona Superintendent of the Year. Mr. Verdugo is active in representing his district in professional and civic organizations, including Arizona School Administrators, Arizona Association of School Superintendents, Rotary International, Nogales Santa Cruz Government Relations, and First Things First Santa Cruz Council. David, did I get that right?
Yes.
Excellent.
And there's always a few more things, but yes.
Tell me one or two of them then.
Well, one of the things that I'm really proud of is I'm on the West Ed board, which is a large education lab, regional education lab in San Francisco, and being on that board has been one of my highlights in the last few years, because it's really gets me involved in a lot of the research that's happening in the forefront of education, and so that's been something that I've been really proud to be part of.
Well, that's fantastic to know, and I didn't know that you were actually part of the West Ed board. It's really an innovative group, and so that it makes sense then why with some of the stuff that we'll talk about later is something we get to talk about today. So that's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that.
Yep.
Thank you. Well, David, I invited you on the show today specifically because Santa Cruz Unified is investing heavily in new infrastructure for learning, and I was wondering if you could tell us a bit more about what you're building.
Yeah, so we actually have quite a few buildings. So we are investing almost between our bond that we had passed with thankful to our community that passed that, as well as school facilities board funding that we pursued because of growth in our district. So we're very fortunate to have that. So close to $40 million of infrastructure that we are building. So we have a wide range of things. And one of the things that when we were looking at why even build, because we're a rural community, we're 15 miles from the Mexican border and 40 miles from South Tucson. So being stuck in the middle of that, and our district is roughly 250 square miles. So we have a large land, but we don't have a lot of infrastructure. So as we decided to build one, the main purpose is because we want to be the center of the community. We wanted to really be the foundation of the community, to keep parents coming in and be our partners and have things that they could do, but also really provide a world-class education for our students. And so we wanted to have as much of a foundation infrastructure-wise that we haven't had in our community to provide those opportunities for our students. So currently we built all new athletic facilities down at our field, and people say, well, why is that important with academics? And we know, especially in our culture here, being so close to the border, that athletics is a big part of that. So having those extra, which we don't even call them extra, we call them co-curricular activities. So that is an important piece for us, having facilities that people can come together as a community. But also it provides those opportunities for our students to be part of teams, learn soft skills and other things that we know are, again, our co-curricular part of things. And then we built a performing arts center, which our district, when it was founded 50 years ago, has never built a performing arts center. And we know with Tubac, which is an artistic community that's in our district, very close, we needed to build something not only for the performing arts, but for the visual arts. And so as part of our performing arts center, we have what they call tech. It's I'm trying to think of the exact word that they use for it, but it's the tech portion of theater where they build sets and they do all the artwork. We have a digital photography program. And so part of that, we're also building a TV studio, production studio as part of our new building, a sports medicine lab that we haven't had as well. So we have all kinds of different buildings that we're building as far as our career technical education program. And that's one of the things that we also have within our district that is very strong. So all these different pieces, lights on all of our fields, and again, those are, people are like, why is lights important? Well, it's because after school programs, so we're, doing things like having our kids go to their sports things after school. And then it allows us to provide adult education so that we have parents that will be right on our campus. So if they go drop their child off at a sports program, then they can go learn English at the school or participate in a fitness class. So we're trying to, again, be the hub of the community. And so the infrastructure was a big piece of how we were able to do that, or how we're pursuing that endeavor.
And so that's something that's really interesting too. I'll bet you that might be something that folks didn't always think about when first getting to know kind of your plan for building all of this infrastructure, is that, if we put lights on the field, suddenly we have, our families have access to something in a new kind of way. Or all of a sudden, if we build this theater program, we have a space to perform, but we also have a space for our youth to learn everything else that goes into making a performance happen, and what it actually takes to build something, to use a tool and cut a wood and put it together and make a thing. It's an entirely different kind of learning. And I'm wondering where did that kind of philosophy come from?
So, this is my 9th year as superintendent, which, I tell people it's like dog years being a superintendent. So each year is
a lot
like
of years
7.
as superintendent. That's a lot of leadership there for sure.
Yeah. And I think that part of that being here for so long, the continuity, but we always had a vision of what we wanted to do within our community. And as I mentioned, we are kind of the middle area, of close to the border, and then having the proximity to Tucson, and we just don't have a lot of amenities. So that was the original piece, was like, how can we really be and we also have only a county government, so we have no local government. So we are kind of seen as that entity. And so in talking to families, parents, what do asking them, what is their needs, and how can we really help them? And one of the other things that we've also done is we have telehealth in all of our health offices. So now we've expanded that infrastructure as part of the community as well, so that teachers can go see the doctor. Students, if they're not feeling well, they can actually have a doctor appointment. Families can come in. So there's different pieces to that. But again, back to the question. I know I'm all over the place. I apologize for that. But I get excited talking about all the things that we're doing. But it really came down to talking to families and doing some different things that that they really, what were their needs, and not only from an educational standpoint, but what were their needs just from a community standpoint. Because we know that if we don't meet those community needs, then it's going to be very difficult for them to be successful in the classroom. And so trying to meet all of those needs. And for instance, we just purchased a food truck. And so we learned during the pandemic, all of our students eat for free in our district. And so, which is a great thing. But during the pandemic, it was hard to get them to either come in or get the food to them. So we had to utilize our buses and so my CFO came up with the idea, why don't we use some of our funds to purchase a food truck? And so now we're able to not only use it for our culinary arts program to go out and do events, but also like this summer months, it's going to be going out in the community and feeding our families. So just really, again, identifying all of the needs that we can meet for our families, community, and students so that they can be successful in the classroom. So all they have to worry about is going to school, focus on the academics, focus on that personalized learning, because that's also a big part of it is really personalizing the learning, meeting our students where they're at. 90% of our students come in speaking Spanish as their first language. And so really getting them to say that that's a strength. That's also one of the things that we talk about, that it's it's not a negative being Hispanic, but it's also not a negative speaking two languages. It's actually a strength.
Mm-hmm.
So convincing all of our students that that's an important thing for them as well. So it just, again, a lot of things that are really trying to just meet all the needs of our community.
And it sounds like that the stuff you're building, the physical space, it isn't just necessarily about, creating a fancy place to do the same thing that we used to do. It really is about creating the space to do a new kind of thing, a thing that actually matches what the children and youth and families of Santa Cruz Unified actually need. Well, that's a really delicious way to get started with our conversation for sure. Let's take a quick break, and then when we come back from our break, let's talk a bit more about how school leaders might develop kind of this shared vision for improving the physical spaces for learning.
Sure.
Hi there. My name is Dr. Tim Gravoy, Executive Director of TGS Educational Consulting. Thanks for being here. I'm excited to invite you to PBIS Multi-Tier System of Support Training happening here in Tucson from the 19th through the 23rd of June. The training is for anyone who is responsible for positive behavior intervention and support implementation, either at the site or at the district level. You can expect a comprehensive overview of PBIS, including what happens at each level of implementation, Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3. And we'll also look at the heart of PBIS, database decision making, and how you can use the information you already collect to better support students' social, emotional, and academic success. Most importantly, you're going to leave with a wealth of resource and strategies to support your work with PBIS and a network of colleagues, including me, that you can count on for support at any time. It's going to be a big week, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Click below to register and email me to get the team rate if you're planning on sending a group. In the meantime, may you have as many opportunities to be as good and generous with yourself as you are with those you serve. Catch you soon. Well, welcome back. So, David, we've been talking about some very big infrastructure projects that are happening in Santa Cruz Valley Unified School District. And as you think about all that had to happen to get those projects started, which parts of your school community had the biggest influence on how all of that work unfolded?
So when we decided to really pursue a bond, because it now entails taxes, so going out and really talking to all of our constituents, and not just those with students, because that's, so it really, it was, we knew what our students and families needed, having a lot of those conversations. Mm-hmm. But it also, as I mentioned, we have a large portion of our community that doesn't have students. Mm-hmm. So convincing them that investing in our schools is important was, I wouldn't say a challenge, but it was a lot of conversation of why we need these. So that's one of the reasons, and I didn't even mention previously, but we're building an aquatic center, as well as we built tennis courts. And so those are all, again, amenities that our community didn't have or doesn't have, that now people even without kids can participate. And what we found is that also connects them to our school district. So it connects them with volunteers and all those things. Mm-hmm. So that, because we have a lot of engineers, retired aerospace people that are exceptional in math and different things. So tying them into what are their needs, for amenities, also gave us a connection to have them volunteer as readers, volunteer as math tutors, and those type of tie-in to help with that personalized learning that we're pursuing with our students. But we talked to a lot of community members, and again, the biggest piece, and going back to your original question, was probably our students. Because that's really where we wanted to focus on what was their needs. And again, one of the things about the pool is, like, we asked students, and they were like, well, I've never been swimming, which is, you think about that and you're like, I don't know how to swim. I've never been to a swimming pool. And you're thinking, well, how is that possible? And we're close to lakes and things. So we're like, that's something that also will bring families together, because part of the aquatic center is going to be a year-round splash pad. So we envision, again, the same thing, as I mentioned before, getting families to come in. And currently our high school has 17 dual enrollment teachers. And so we're one of the leaders in Southern Arizona in dual enrollment, because we want our students, by 2027, our goal is to have 60% of our students graduate with an associate's degree. So that they now it's not cost prohibitive for them to pursue higher education. But also we want to be able to provide those opportunities in the evening for our adults and our families. And so we've really worked hard at trying to figure out ways to get people on campus. But again, the students were the biggest voice. That was that we had our bond and override committee, and we had students involved with that, community members. But the biggest voice, and it's amazing when you give them a voice, that adults listen to students, because and especially our students I love to brag about our kids. We have some of the best kids everywhere. They just are just awesome kids, awesome families here. And people always ask, what's the secret sauce to our success? Because we have a 95% graduation rate. And I always tell people it's the families and the students. We just have some of the best, most respectful students that appreciate education. And so giving them the voice of what do they really want to see in our community, in our district, that's one of the things that voice really shined through when we had that conversation.
Yeah. And we always talk as educators about how important it is to involve youth. We need to centralize youth voice. We need to centralize all kinds of voices that tend to be that tend to be marginalized in these kinds of conversations, for sure. And it sounds like instead of talking about it, you actually did. Practically speaking, when you say that you talked to students about what needed to get built, practically what did that look like?
So we had a committee, and then and we included them on the committee. So it was an actual superintendent's committee that came together. We had agendas, and they took it very seriously. They attended the meetings, they took notes, they really expressed what their feelings were. And when we started talking about we needed to build something, and they were like, no, that's not. They were very vocal about what they felt was the important pieces, and they kind of drew us in, and actually we were looking at even going higher, and then they were some of them that actually brought us back to where they felt it was comfortable for our families, because we talked about what the tax rates would be, and them actually being part of their families. They knew what the struggles are or what the costs would be in our community, and so they said, let's try to keep it in this area. So they really did have a voice in a lot of things that we were trying to do.
Well, that's just fantastic. And that's I heard one youth once say that when you involve youth, you have to remember that, yes, a youth is the expert of their own life, but that doesn't necessarily make a bird an ornithologist at the same time. And I thought it was a really instructive thing for that young person to share, is that, yes, I absolutely am the expert of my own life and what I need. And you should listen to me if you're going to be designing programs for me. And yet I might not necessarily have the skills to show up to this meeting with adults. I may never have been to a meeting with an agenda or have any idea what's expected of me in this setting. But creating the space and time to actually do that, I'm just imagining that the youth that did participate learned a whole lot more than they perhaps thought they might have. It's just beautiful. And the second thing I'm thinking about too is just that, kind of going back to the aquatic center example of that, I bet you there probably were a couple examples of where, yes, your student athletes need a place to practice and compete and actually be able to do the thing, because otherwise, I have no idea where they're going to swim if not at their own school, right? But then also thinking about that, if you're a community member and you don't have kids in the school and you're being asked to spend more tax dollars to get this, to understand how when schools win, I win too, is a really beautiful thing, especially if there really isn't any other layer of government between you and the county. Like it really is kind of you who's going to have to provide these things. That's a really neat way to think about that.
Yeah, and it was, as I mentioned, we did so many presentations talking to those groups of why it's important. And I speak at the Board of Realtors annually. And I always talk about that with them, is like, what's the first question that anybody asks when they move into a community? How are the schools? Because if you have great schools, then your property value is up, low crime, all of those different things that make a strong community. And so that was one of the things that we shared with those that didn't have kids, is like, you want your property values to be high, and then again, it gave them that partnership, and they're very, very supportive. We're very, very fortunate to have such strong support from those that don't even have students. They really support what we do, and like I mentioned, they volunteer for a lot of things, and it really makes a great partnership.
Yeah, and kind of creating space, literally creating the space for that partnership to happen. This is really an important part of the work, it sounds like. Well, let's go ahead and we'll take one last break. And when we come back, let's have a final thought from Superintendent David Verdugo on how school leaders might get started on thinking about how they might improve the physical learning environment for their students and what that might actually offer their communities if they did.
Santa Cruz Valley Unified School District in Rio Rico, Arizona is looking for dedicated teachers and staff that are in search of an exceptional work environment. Our state and nationally recognized schools and programs produce successful students who become the leaders of tomorrow. SCV 35 offers competitive pay, paid professional development, and excellent benefits. Applications are now being accepted. Visit scv35.org/jobs today to get started. SCV 35 is an equal opportunity employer.
Welcome back, David. It's been great to talk to you today. And I'm just wondering, given all of the ground that we covered in terms of just improving the physical learning environment for children and youth and building the community around it, really, I'm wondering, is there a final thought that you might have for us?
Yeah, I'd love to share, a lot of things that we're doing, beyond the infrastructure, that really the purpose of the infrastructure is what we really are creating is our personalized learning environment. And so that goes with what we're doing from an instructional side of things. So we've really moved towards personalized learning for our students, meeting them where their biggest needs are, and personalize that learning. And I didn't mention it, but part of our infrastructure is also furniture, because you have the same setup with desks and rows and things. So we actually have different learning spaces. So part of the purchasing that was done through the bond was to buy different types of seating, different locations that students can go into groups. Part of our infrastructure in our new media center is going to be collaboration rooms. So they're going to have the ability for groups to go in, have the glass walls where they can write their ideas and do different things. So really just providing a lot of learning spaces for them. So it's not that traditional model of I'm in a row and just getting that regurgitated information to me. It's really focusing on our instruction. We work really hard on personalizing our instruction, which is a lot of work for our teachers, because they now have to look at each individual student versus I'm going to teach to the mass, and people are like, how is that possible? It is possible, but it's a lot of work. And we tell teachers that they come into our district that, we'll support you as much as we possibly can. We have our teaching, learning, and assessment department that goes out and does professional development with all of our staff, but really focusing on that instruction piece of how we can meet and develop a plan for each individual student, which leads into our portrait of a graduate, and what we want our students to be when they graduate. And we're very fortunate to have a preschool, which many districts do not. And not only do we have a preschool, but we're one of the only 5-star in all of preschools in all of Southern Arizona. So we're very
It takes a lot to get that 5th star.
Yes,
it's not easy to get that 5th star. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. And so it's really, starts there, and then moves into our full day kinder. And so closing the gap, as I mentioned, with 90% of our students speaking Spanish as their first language, it really is closing that gap for them to be able to use the language in the classroom. But then again, that's why personalized learning is so important. So having almost using the special ed terms, almost having an IEP for each student, and then providing spaces for them to learn. And then now we've moved to standards-based grading. So that's also been part of our big journey, is not only the infrastructure, but then moving into how do we instruct, how do we help our students learn? It's not about, and was the biggest shift, is it's not about the teaching, it's about the learning. It's getting our students to learn what is the outcomes that we want for them to be proficient at. And then providing those opportunities, as I mentioned, our big goal is to have our students graduate with an associate's degree. because we have such a high graduation rate, but some of our students, only 40% move on to higher ed. But we're also providing certificates. We have a very robust career technical education program with ag science. We have a tilapia farm. We have a chicken ranch that produces 80 dozen eggs a week that we give to the food bank. And, so we have all kinds of different avenues for our students. We have a big law enforcement in our area because of customs, border patrol, and regular law enforcement. So we have a law enforcement program. So again, just really personalizing the learning on top of the infrastructure is something that I'm very proud of our district, and then providing these opportunities. I know one of the things that in my bio, we didn't really talk about, but we were the 2018 AP School District of the Year, National School District of the Year, and we were the Cambridge School District of the Year for the nation. So, and again, how does that happen? I'm just very fortunate to have a great team and really focused on what we can do to make our school district and our community better.
Yeah, and I think that really is kind of that point, right? Is that, yeah, we can take a look around and look for ways to kind of make improvements to the physical learning environment. But the reason why we're doing that is because it sounds like you definitely believe that the literal space that your learners are doing the work in is going to shape what learning happens, like what kind of learning happens. And we can't really talk about collaboration if the spaces themselves don't lend themselves to that. No, is that, am I paraphrasing correctly?
Yeah, you're correct. Yeah, because again, it's a very big mind shift to get people a whole just different way of doing things, and we do still have some structure. And people are like, oh, you're just letting it. No, there's structure, and there is a lot of intentionality behind it, because that's the thing I think people get afraid of, is that kids doing different things inside the classroom. But again, it's really about learning that standard and how different students learn. Especially today, one of the things that we're also a one-to-one district, so every student in our district has a Chromebook. And so, but we tell our teachers that's just a tool. It's not, you're just not going to plant the student in front of the Chromebook and then expect them to learn. It's just one of those tools that we have, and that's been our challenge, is to really help our teachers from a pedagogy side of things learn themselves how to be better instructors and pull that personalized learning out of their students.
And I'll tell you, it's something else that you said that was related to that I really appreciated was every time that I'm in a PD session and the presenter says something like, this is easy, it's just like something you've already done. I know that somebody is telling a lie. Like someone is telling a lie, because we wouldn't be going to this training if the point wasn't to learn something new and to change our practice somehow and to do something differently than the way that we used to be doing it. And for goodness sakes, we could have like another 5 shows on standard-based grading. And is that on its own is just a huge, just cognitive shift. And not even just on the part of our instructors, but on the part of our families, and understanding what the heck this report card means now. And that's like all of that is just different. But I'll tell you what, one of the things that's real clear to me just in our conversation is that you have a deep belief and a deep commitment and an understanding of how the physical space that the learning happens influences what is possible for in terms of learning. And it's just really inspiring. And I'm just grateful to have you on the show today. And thank you. So listeners, I hope you enjoyed our show, and I hope you reach out to me or to David with your thoughts in our conversation. You can find Superintendent David Verdugo at dverdugo, DVERDUGO at scv35.org. And you can find me at tim@tgseducationalconsulting.com. If you're a district, site, or teacher leader who is doing something cool with your learning environment, drop a comment below. And until next time, may you have as many opportunities to be as kind and generous to yourself as you are with those you serve.